Standard Industrial. We created a series of tutorials to make sure that you have the information needed to get the most out of your standard industrial equipment. When you're done with these lessons, check out the other skill building videos on our YouTube channel, and thank you for choosing to make Standard Industrial part of your business. In today's lesson, we'll learn about basic navigation of the CNC control. Primary navigation of the CNC control is provided by the array of buttons at the top of the screen. The first button that has the icon of a sheet of paper is the editor screen. The editor screen is where you will do all the building and modification of programs. So any data entry and any data alteration of programs will be conducted on the editor screen. The next icon with the hand on it is trying to indicate manual labor, and that's because this is manual mode. The manual mode is the only production mode that allows you to operate the machine without a program. The manual mode is useful when you are shutting the machine down in the evening and you're parking the punch and the die to go home for the evening. It's also helpful in manually manipulating the RAM as you change tooling, and it actually can be used to bend metal, but without the aid of a control program. The next mode is the semi-automatic mode. The wrench is supposed to indicate semi-automatic, and it is a mode that requires a program. So as you see me click on it, you're going to see it provide me an error message because I don't yet have a program information built into the control. You'll also notice that it automatically moved me back to the editor screen, which is where I would put information about a program into the control. So we're going to click OK, and we're going to go ahead and enter some information for a program so that we can move into the semi-automatic production mode. Now, we have separate lessons on building numeric and graphic programs, so we'll be able to cover that information in separate detail very slowly so that you can follow along, but for right now I'm going to simply enter some information in so that we can move on to the next mode. So let's enter semi-automatic mode, and you'll notice one of the primary differences is the current position fields show up. So in semi-automatic mode, as you're operating, you'll know where your current axis position is at all times. Another thing that is different about semi-automatic mode is that it is designed to allow you to manually move between bends. So when you're working on entering corrections to get a particular bend angle right, you may have to bend that same angle 2 or 3 times in a row. And if you're in a multi-bend program, you don't want the CNC automatically forcing you to the second bend until you've got the dimensions for the first bend ironed out. So in semi-automatic mode, what you'll notice is that when you actually execute a bend, it won't advance to the next stage. It'll stay in the bend that you're working with. So let's go ahead and execute a bend, and you'll notice that as the bend reaches the bottom dead center, it'll be down to 9185. Now it's going to return back to the top, and when it does, you'll see that we're still on bend 1, and that's because in semi-automatic mode the control hasn't forced us forward to the next segment of the bend. Now let's move over to fully automatic mode. We have fully automatic mode is the icon that has a symbol of the factory on it. And when we move into fully automatic mode, you'll know there's literally no difference in the screen. It's identical, but this time we're going to execute a bend, and what you'll notice is that after we reach the BDC and return to the top of the bend, we're going to actually see that the automatic mode advances us to bend 2, and that's literally the only difference between semi-automatic and automatic modes. You'll also see that our back gauge is moving into the correct position for bend 2. So in normal production, after you've got all of your bend corrections entered and your bends are coming out correctly, you're typically in fully automatic mode, and that helps you stamp out parts and keep producing rapidly. But during the development phase, where you don't want to be automatically forced from one bin to the next until your corrections have entered, you want to be in semi-automatic mode. Next, we'll take a look at the program database. Now, this icon contains two pictures. One is of the database symbol. In the world of computers, that stacked dime is a symbol for a database, and then we also see the familiar sheet of paper where we write programs. So this icon is trying to communicate that it is the program database. So when we click on it, what it takes us to is the list of stored programs that we have in the control. So each of these programs has been created and stored, and if we select one, it's going to provide us general information about the program out here in the margin. Now, if we hold down on one of these programs, it will cause it to be imported into the memory and ready to be executed. Now, we're going to do that, and you're going to find that an error message pops up. And the reason the error message pops up is because the program that we had in the editor that I used to demonstrate the semi-automatic and automatic modes has not been saved. And as it started to load this program into the current memory, which would replace the program that we have in there now, it recognized that program had not been saved, and it wants to make sure that we're okay losing that data when we replace it with the program we've just selected. Now, this is an important point about syntax in these programs. They are written in Europe, and the way they communicate is a little different than what we typically used to here. And so you'll notice that what it asks you is, do you want to cancel changes? That's a little bit different. We're typically prompted by our computers with the question that asks us, do we want to save changes? But in this case, it's saying, do you want to cancel changes? Or in other words, are you okay with losing the information that you have currently in the editor and replacing it with the information you selected? So in this case, we do want to erase it and load the bin 1 program, so we will say yes. Now, when we do that, it takes us back into the editor mode, and we see the name of the bin 1 program there, and we're back in editor mode again. So that's how you extract a program into memory, but just remember that it's going to ask you if you want to cancel changes if the program had not already been saved. Now, let's go back to the program database, and let's replace the program we just imported with another program. Okay, so we're going to hold this. Now, it didn't ask us that time, and the reason is because the program that we were replacing was already saved. So it's not worried that you can't get back to or retrieve that program if it imports the one you just selected. So it's not going to prompt you unless the information that you're replacing has never been saved before. Next, we'll go to the tooling database. It also has two icons on it, the same series of stacked dimes that represents the computer database, and then a depiction of a punch and a V-die. So that is trying to communicate that this is the tooling database. And from the tooling database, we have a similar process. We can highlight any of the tools that we have, and it's going to provide us a general picture and just some general information about the die that we have. Now, we also have a punch list. This just shows us dies, and so to toggle back and forth between the punch and the die list, you have to hit the tooling database icon again, and now it shows us the punch list, and here we can select punches and get general punch information as well. So toggling back and forth gets us from one list to the next, and just as we were able to double click on the program database, if we double click on a die or a punch, what's going to happen in this case is it's going to bring up the actual drawing of the punch and give us an opportunity to modify it if we so chose. when we look at a particular die, to actually insert it into memory, we have to go down here and hit the insert button. These topics are covered in some of the drawing dies and punches and setting up numeric programs and graphical programs, but we're just covering them with a little redundancy here. The next icon with the C on it is the corrections icon. The corrections icon is a separate screen that allows you to enter corrections into the control. You noticed earlier when we were in the editor mode that we have a corrections field here where we can enter corrections directly into the program. This is an alternate screen that allows you to enter corrections. It offers some different functionality than you can access directly from the editor screen, and we're going to cover this and the corrections on the editor screen separately in a lesson that focuses strictly on entering correction values. Next, the icon that we have is a floppy disk, and the floppy disk icon is simply used to save to the USB port on your CNC control. That's the only thing this does. And so if you put a USB stick in your CNC control and you hit this button, it's going to save whatever data you're on to the CNC drive. You have seen the forward and reverse arrows. They help us navigate forward and backwards on any given screen that we happen to be on. And then finally, the last main navigation button is the save button here in the correction screen, which allows us to save information. There's one icon that is not visible when you go on the correction screen, and it is the last functional icon, and that's the trash can, which is the delete button. So anytime you need to delete something, the delete button here can do that. And then you also have this question mark button, and when you hit it, it will give you information about the particular field that you're on or the particular screen that you're on. So if you want to ask questions about the measures field, for instance, it automatically comes up there, but if it doesn't for some reason, you can always hit the question mark icon and it'll give you information about the field you're hovering over. So that covers the main navigation buttons at the top of the screen. Now there's one other way to navigate inside the program, and there are two basic things I want to show you about it. First of all, there are some main navigation buttons like the editor screen that have alternate views. So you notice that when I hit it the first time, we see the view that you've been familiar with throughout the lessons, but now if I hit it a second time, I have a simplified view. This simplified view is there to help with operators that may not be as computer savvy. It takes a lot of the clutter on the screen away and helps them focus on just specific items, so it may be used for that. And then there are also graphics on this screen that can help cue an operator regarding the orientation of a part in a given step in the bending process. So as you go through a multiple bend process, if the part needs to be turned or rotated or flipped, there are cues on this screen to help assist the operator with that. Next, we're going to cover the menu screen. So the menu button in the bottom right corner is another method of navigation in the control. When you click on the menu button the first time, it's going to show you the choices that are available for the particular screen that you are on. So we are on the editor screen, and I've clicked the menu button one time, and what I see are the different options that are available. Be mindful that depending upon how many options are available, there may be a scroll bar apparent over here, and that's telling you that there are options available that you can't see on the screen. So be mindful of that as you look at the options available on different screens. Now we're going to go to the manual screen now after we get out of this, and we're going to press the menu button one time, and you'll notice a much shorter list of options is available on the menu screen. So now you'll notice the second time I click the button, there is a different menu that comes up. Here you're going to see it starts at 0 with editor, and it goes to the 9 with monitor memory. And you're going to notice that no matter what screen you're on, this same menu is going to pop up the second time you hit the menu button. So the first time you hit the button, it will always show you the options that are available for the specific screen you're on, and the second time you hit it, you will always get the same default menu options regardless of which screen you happen to be on. So that's kind of a unique navigational detail about these controls. Now, at the bottom of each screen, you've noticed that you also have functions that are available on that screen represented as buttons at the bottom of the screen. So in the manual mode, I have positioning and a couple of other buttons down here. You'll also see that there's an arrow that appears to the left on the screen, which means that there could be, or there is a set of fields that you can't see on the screen. Now in this case, you notice there are gaps here, so because this whole row is not full, you're not going to find any additional buttons on the other screen. But in some cases, we may have a situation where the screen is completely full or has buttons on the other row. See, on the editor screen here, we're almost completely full at the bottom. There is one gap, but then on the next screen there are additional buttons included. So kind of the third area of navigation you have is down here on the continual button screen. So you got three major areas. You have the primary navigation button array up here at the top of the screen. Then you have the navigation that is offered by the menu. So both the first click being the menus on the individual screen, and then the second click being the standard list of menu options that are on every screen on the menu. And then you have the buttons that are available to you at the bottom of the screen, as well as any buttons that may be available to you additionally on that same screen that are revealed by the arrow. And with those three areas, you have seen the methods of navigating the control. Now, the point of this was simply to give you the landscape of the navigation for the control, and we have, through other lessons that focus on specific skills, take you through each one of these areas in detail, showing you what each field does and what each button does. So thank you for learning how to navigate on the control, and please take a look at the rest of the skill building lessons to learn to gain competence with using the CNC control. I hope this tutorial has been beneficial, and if it has, we need to ask a favor of you. In order to keep this site visible and to continue to bring this material to you for free, we need you to become a subscriber. We promise if you do that we will not send annoying solicitations to you. The only time you'll receive notifications is when we post new material to the site. So please subscribe, and thank you again for choosing to make Standard Industrial part of your business.